Around 80 heads of states and governments have descended on Baku for the United Nations 2-week climate summit. The summit's negotiating priorities will be competing for governments' resources and attention against economic concerns, wars in Ukraine and Gaza, and last week's US re-election of Donald Trump. The president of the previous conference, Sultan Ahmed Al-Jaber, called on all parties to unite, act and deliver.
When sectors work together, we can lift economies and lower emissions. We can make climate and socio-economic progress together at the same time. And we can turn declarations on paper into decisive action on the ground. The critical success factor for all climate progress is finance. We continue to call on all sources, public and private, to make finance more available, more accessible, and more affordable.
The president of COP29, Mukhtar Babayev, emphasized the urgent need to ramp up global climate ambitions and the needs and priorities of developing countries.
Our plan is based on two pillars: to enhance ambition and enable action. This means setting out clear climate plans and delivering the finance we need. These two pillars are mutually reinforcing, each sending a strong signal to the other. Because as we mobilize climate finance, we allow for high ambitions. And as we signal together higher ambition, we build trust to unlock greater financial commitments.
He also added action needs to begin now and must keep the momentum going.
Azerbaijan is determined to step up to the biggest issues, on the biggest stages, and lead by example. We have beaten the odds before. People have doubted us. Let us prove them wrong. But no single country or initiative can solve this crisis. This is everyone's conference. Success or failure will be collective. So our message to you is this: Azerbaijan can build the bridge, but you all need to walk across it. In fact, we need to start running.
In closing, he reminded delegates that despite their diversity, shared humanity must be at the heart of their efforts.
As the UN Climate Change Conference COP29 kicks off in Baku, Azerbaijan, delegates from around the world are set to engage in crucial negotiations aiming at tackling the urgent issue of rising global temperatures. Special Advisor to the UN Secretary-General, Selwyn Charles Hart, says more needs to be done.
Climate crisis. The reality is that we are not in a good place. While important progress has been made since the adoption of the Paris Agreement less than a decade ago, the world is still not moving fast enough to limit warming to the 1.5 degree goal of the Paris Agreement and prevent the worst impacts of the climate crisis. Many of these impacts accelerate across the world, and no continent, no country, no region has been spared. In addition, as we see the pace of the transition accelerate, it is doing so in a very unequal way. Since the adoption of the Paris Agreement, 4 out of every $5 in clean energy was invested in the advanced economies and China. The rest of the world, sadly, is being left behind. And if we continue at this rate, the climate crisis will definitely exacerbate inequalities between countries and within countries. COP29 represents an important milestone in our fight against the climate crisis. It is a COP where the main negotiating outcome will be a new goal on finance, a new climate finance goal. The reality is no one country, no one group of countries can solve the climate crisis. We need everyone to make an extra effort. The leadership of the G20 will be crucial. We need all G20 countries really to be on the high end of the ambition scale when they submit their new national climate plans. Countries are currently spending 9 times more to make fossil fuels cheaper than cleaner alternatives. 9 times more. So taxpayers are subsidizing. Taxpayers across the world are subsidizing fossil fuels, but also footing the bill for the climate damage that the use of fossil fuels is causing. There's always skepticism around big international UN meetings. But the reality is that that multilateral cooperation on climate through these COPs has really ensured that the issues of climate change have risen, have ensured to the top of the global agenda. I urge you to use this as a moment to demonstrate your solidarity with those on the front lines of the climate crisis. More than ever, this is a moment. Use this moment to rebuild trust and rebuild hope that we can truly solve this crisis.
Indonesian authorities rushed to evacuate reluctant residents from villages impacted by the volcanic eruption of Lower Tobi Laki-Laki on Sunday. The approximately 1,600-metre volcano has been spewing material since November the 3rd, leading officials to expand the danger zone and evacuation efforts.
We plan to evacuate some of the remaining residents again, but due to our limited transport fleet, we will wait. As soon as we can, there will be further evacuation of the remaining villages.
As the authorities only had a limited number of vehicles, they could only assist willing evacuees, while some, like 48-year-old Matthias Budi, chose to leave independently.
I would rather evacuate by myself because I have fields and plants here and want to collect and sell the crops in order to survive. I've been here for 1 week since last Monday.
On Saturday, the Volcanology Agency extended the restricted zone from 8 to 9 kilometres from the crater's southwest to northwest.
People evacuated in the Philippines as Typhoon Toraji made landfall early Monday. Heavy rain and strong winds hit the northern regions of the city of Luzon. Around 2,500 residents were evacuated to shelters, with schools and offices closed. Winds reached 81 miles per hour. This is the 4th cyclone to hit the Philippines in a month. Recent storms have killed over 150 people.
Carbon dioxide filling the atmosphere. Recent data suggests an 11% increase in CO2 emissions within the last 20 years. That's according to a report released last month by the United Nations, indicating greenhouse gases in the atmosphere have reached record-breaking levels.
Carbon dioxide is accumulating in the atmosphere faster than at any time experienced during human existence. And because of the extremely long lifetime of CO2 in the atmosphere, we are committed to rising temperatures for many, many years to come.
Experts say greenhouse gases are the cause of a rise in global temperatures. A time-lapse over a 2-decade period released by NASA reveals a stark rise in global surface temperatures. Watch the map turn red. European Union scientists believe this year's global temperatures are going to be the hottest in over 125,000 years. And it's with this context that the COP29 climate conference kicks off in Azerbaijan.
We must strike the heart of the crisis, greenhouse gases. The G20 must lead global efforts to cut emissions 9% a year to 2030, phase out fossil fuels fast and fairly, and accelerate the renewables revolution so that we limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The climate crisis is here. We can't postpone protection. We must adapt now.
There's pressure on governments arriving in Baku to showcase their plans on just how much they're willing to cut back on emissions to prevent global temperatures rising. Reducing CO2 emissions will remain a key part of the discussions.
Pope Francis urged leaders at the United Nations COP29 climate summit in the capital of Azerbaijan to give an effective contribution in protecting the environment. The head of the Catholic Church also expressed closeness to the victims in Valencia and other parts of Spain who are dealing with the consequences of the deadly floods which killed more than 220 people. His thoughts also went to those living on the island of Flores in Indonesia, where a series of volcanic eruptions of Mount Lewatopi Laki-Laki killed 9 people and injured dozens of others. Turkey is one of the leading countries in Europe for its renewable energy production. That's according to the International Energy Agency president. Fatih Birol was discussing the recent unveiled Renewable Energy 2035 roadmap for offshore wind power. He pointed out that 2025 could usher in a new era of global trade wars as countries strive to secure a powerful position in emerging energy technologies. Birol noted that many developed nations are turning to trade regulations and tariffs to shield local markets from lower-cost imports when it comes to solar panels, batteries, and electric vehicles. He warned that while these measures are intended to bolster renewable energy sectors, they could also incite significant trade disputes, potentially impacting the global economy if left unchecked. Turkey and the World Bank are in discussion to finance a $28 billion energy transmission infrastructure project, a cornerstone of Turkey's renewable energy transformation plan. The initiative aligns with Turkey's 2035 renewable energy targets, aiming to expand the country's energy capacity and diversify its resources. World Bank Country Director for Turkey, Umberto Lopez, emphasized the bank's support for Turkey's green energy ambitions.
I mean, we are in a situation now where we are supporting the development of the energy transition plan of the government that involves the installation of 90 additional gigawatts of renewables to reach 120 gigawatts from here to 2035.
A detailed report by the bank to assess the country's offshore wind energy potential examined opportunities in regions like Marmara and the Black Sea. It evaluated wind speeds, water depth, and protected areas.
When you look at all these things, clearly you will have a clear view of the economics of offshore wind and how this is going to enter into the mix. I think I agree with the idea of diversifying energy production, onshore, offshore, everything, but the amount that you are going to put in one area or another area will depend on all these factors.
The project also includes infrastructure improvements to support this energy transformation. The investment needed to increase Turkey's wind and solar energy capacity by 2035 is estimated at $80 billion, while the energy transmission infrastructure requires an additional $28 billion. The initial phase, set to begin next year, involves $750 million in funding to facilitate the energy transition. Lopez highlighted their long-term commitment, noting that a second project of similar value is planned in the coming years to further bolster transmission infrastructure.